Welcome to our fourth episode of A Bird's Eye View, a spotlight on faculty teaching excellence. Once again, we are excited to share some remote instruction best practices of our phenomenal BC faculty. I'm Michelle Levine, District Director of Faculty Development in CTEL.
Hi, I'm Belinda Meridian. I'm the District Director for Instructional Design.
Joining us today as our faculty guest is Professor Laura Pazarina, representing the IPS pathway.
Laura is a certified senior crime scene analyst that has been working in the criminal justice field for nearly 15 years as a police officer, crime scene investigator, and now professor. She recently brought her experience to Broward College, where she is the criminal justice program manager, lead crime scene instructor, and a police academy adjunct instructor.
A fun fact about Professor Pazarina: Laura has traveled to various countries, including India, Peru, Afghanistan, Nepal, China, the United Arab Emirates, and Thailand. During those travels, she hiked the Himalayan mountains and has been to several of the wonders of the world, including Stonehenge, the Great Wall of China, and the Taj Mahal. Wow, I am so envious of your travels, Laura, and I would love to hear all about that another time. And just so everybody knows, most of us faculty and students affectionately call Professor Pazarina Laura Paz or Paz. So if I say that, that is why, because I'm used to calling her Laura Paz. So welcome, Laura, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So let's get started. Professor Pazarina, can you please describe some of the best practices that you have used to transition your courses to a remote environment?
Yes, good morning. So some of the things that I've had to do as far as transitioning to remote, the things that I found to be most useful to the students has been keeping them on a regular schedule. So I chose to do the synchronous teaching, where we actually teach classes at the same time, on the same days, on Blackboard Collaborate. So I took all of my face-to-face courses and transitioned into the Blackboard Collaborate forum, where my students met me at our regular scheduled time, which helped them to still work with each other, because during that time, I also put them into breakout groups. When I did face-to-face, I do a lot of group activities and things where they have to interact and work together, as well as with me. And so doing it synchronous, where we still kept them on the same schedule, and doing the breakout groups within Blackboard Collaborate really helped them to still keep that family vibe that we had in our classrooms, even in a remote environment. So those two things really turned out to be the best practices for our courses, because they still got to work together, talk to each other, and I was still able to monitor and help them at the same times that we always did.
Excellent. We would love to see a live demo of the way you're using Blackboard Collaborate in the remote environment. Are you able to share that with us now?
Yes, of course. So some of the things that we're going to talk about today are the uniqueness of my classes. So I stress with my courses a lot of hands-on activities, and I do a lot of labs where we do mock crime scenes, or we do mock trials, we do interviews with people, we do a lot of labs where we deal with chemicals and things that are very hands-on that the students really cannot get a grasp on in a remote environment. So one of the biggest things I had to deal with was figuring out how to expose them to that. So my students now affectionately call me a YouTuber, which I've discovered during all of this is a term. So what I ended up doing is creating, and I'm going to try to get my screen to share here. So I ended up creating my own YouTube, which hopefully you can see there on the screen. And so all those that you're seeing at the top are my separate labs that the students would have done in class. And this is something that when I was creating it, I was thinking would be really helpful in some of the other disciplines like chemistry or biology, where they actually encompass those hands-on activities that the students would have to do. How are we going to incorporate those things? And this seemed to work really well for us. What I ended up doing was creating these YouTube videos. I got permission to go back to my lab, and I was able to use the chemicals and demonstrate in a video what the actual lab was that the students were doing. And I'm not sure, because I'm only on one screen, so I'm not sure if I can play the video for you from here. But essentially, all of those videos that you're seeing are the different labs that the students had. So what I would do is I would create the video and then share the video link to my breakout groups. So the students were still in their lab groups, and then they would view the video as if they were doing the lab, and then they could still answer those questions.
I absolutely love that. You can actually, when you share your content, as long as you click on share audio, you would be able to show us. I would love to see one of those videos. There's a tiny little checkbox in the bottom left corner called share audio.
In the bottom left corner of
before you start sharing.
Oh, I got you. Okay, before I start sharing. Mm-hmm. See, I'm still learning things.
Yeah, we learn something new every day.
Right?
This is probably the most common question that I've gotten since we started doing all of the training in Blackboard Collaborate. How do you share your audio when you're sharing a video? So it's excellent that this is coming up.
Right? So you said, so I'm on the share your screen, and you said in the bottom left.
Mm-hmm. Select the video, and in the bottom left, there's a tiny checkbox. I forget all the time, but you have to check this box to share audio, and then click share. You can share your.
I see it. I got it. Yep.
Yep.
Ha. Now if I hit play.
All right, guys, we're on to station 4, our last station. For this station, we are going to be using our skull and striking it from side to side on the walls. Again, remember to review our broad categories of injury and then the more specific for both the skull and the brain. So let's see what happens to our skull when we strike it side to side.
And this is a lab that the students actually would have done had we been in a face-to-face. So they
What
get
is that, a can?
What was that?
Is that a cantaloupe or a melon?
Yeah, that's a melon.
Notice any external injury, but think about what is happening internal to both the skull and the brain. Remember, this is a different type of injury versus any of our other stations. Review the broad and specific injuries, discuss with your group, and answer the questions for station 4.
So that was just one of the stations. And in that class, that's one of my advanced courses where they were learning about fractures to the skull and injuries to the brain. So in the actual lab that they would have done in class, the students themselves would have done that lab where I give them melons and I have them drop them from different heights. They smash them with bats. They bang them on the walls. And it re-emphasizes the things that we talked about in lecture. But in this situation with the remote environment, there was no way for them to actually do that type of lab at home or together as a group, which is really what I want them to do. So by showing them that video, as you heard in the video, I tell them, because I put them in breakout groups, and in their breakout group, I share that video with them. They view the video as a group, as if they were going to that station as a team, and then together they answer the questions just like they would have in class. And so this was one of the things that I came up with to help with some of the hands-on things that they were doing in class.
That is absolutely phenomenal. And, one of the things that we've been talking about in some of our professional development sessions is this idea of these micro lectures or short videos. And so I love that, from what I could see real quickly in your YouTube channel, most of those videos are less than 2 or 3 minutes and very easy for the students to view. And I absolutely love how you are using the breakout rooms to have the students watch those videos together and then discuss it. So that's phenomenal.
The breakout groups has really been like my go-to because that's what I do in the classroom. And so they are able, like you said, to view them together, and then they still work together to answer the questions. And yet all of my videos are only a couple minutes long, where I do just that. I go through the actual station, and each student is given a lab handout. So it has specific questions that they have to answer based on that video. So it was what I thought to be a pretty creative way to get the students to still do hands-on labs that they could not do at home. And the other creative, like I ended up having to make them, they had to create crime scenes at their homes themselves. but this one really helped them to do it as a team because they could see it together.
And just out of curiosity, did you just film that with your phone or did you use a special camera?
Yeah, we used just like a digital camera. It's like a handheld camera.
Excellent. That's really just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it seems like you didn't have to interrupt the flow or the engagement of the class at all with the use of those videos. How long did it take you to create all of those videos?
So the videos took me an afternoon, probably about 2 to 4 hours, depending how many stations I had in the lab, because like that one was station, I think 3 of say 4 or 5. So depending on how many stations I had, so it was only a few hours. So it really didn't take me very long. I had to do a couple retakes because I've never done that before. So that was tricky. But once I got into a rhythm and knew what I wanted to say to the students on the videos, it went pretty quick. So, I took an afternoon on my weekend, I videoed them all. And then now the nice thing is that I have these for future as well. If, let's say, one of the issues I've had in the past with face-to-face is students that miss a lab due to an emergency or something. Well, there's no way I can have them make that up. And now, interestingly, I've come up with a way to do that. So that's been kind of a unique twist to this whole thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the questions we were going to ask you was what are some unexpected positive outcomes? And it's really great to hear that you're now going to use some of these strategies that you were kind of forced into using and then seeing the benefit for them even in the future. If we are to go back to a face-to-face environment, you can still see a use for these videos in the long run.
Yeah, as I was doing them and I was saving them, I was thinking about that and I was like, man, I've had so many students that have had emergency situations come up where they just could not make it to the labs. And what do you do? And I've in the past had to just come up with questions or I've made them do something else. And now I can actually use these videos. I think that's going to turn out to be really beneficial.
That's excellent. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you so much for your hands-on demonstration. So another question that we have for you, can you please share how you feel that your subject matter is unique in addressing remote delivery?
So I touched on this a little bit when I talked about the videos. What's interesting about this field, crime scene investigations, is just what it sounds like. It's investigating crime scenes. So it's very challenging to have students investigate crime scenes remotely because in the classroom, we do this all hands-on. I actually have a mock crime scene room that looks like a house and I set up crime scenes and I have bodies and I have fake blood and I have evidence and the students really, it's a really cool environment and the students truly get to experience what it's like to walk into a real crime scene and then try to figure out how do I process this evidence and collect this evidence? And so that was one of the biggest challenges for going remotely in this environment is that how do I make a crime scene that they can physically walk into now remote where they still get that same experience? So in addition, some of my advanced courses and my investigations courses, I actually do mock trials where they have to dress like they're going to court. So they have to wear like suits and they wear nice attire and they come and they sit on the stand and they get questioned by attorneys. And that was another challenge. How am I going to get that same? Because the whole idea was to make the students feel that nervous energy of having to testify and explain the work that you did on this crime scene. And I was trying to figure out ways on how to get that same feeling for the students. And so some of those hands-on, face-to-face, nervous energy type things that you feel when you're working a real crime scene and you're testifying in real court, that was very challenging for this whole remote environment aspect.
Right. So what do you feel that was most successful of what you did?
So I would say that out of everything that I had to do this semester, my trials turned out to be really successful. I was very pleased with how my trials turned out. Yeah, I do my trials in almost all of my classes actually have some trial component. And the Blackboard Collaborate really worked well because I was able to get strangers. I put it out to people, which I do every semester, that anybody that is interested in being a jury member can volunteer to come to my mock trials. And I give them rubrics that I have them give me some feedback on how the students did. And with Blackboard Collaborate, I was able to invite those people in. So the students still had the experience of testifying in front of people they did not know. And that's the whole point, is I wanted them, when they do trial, you don't know the jury. And so with this Blackboard Collaborate and the way that it works with being able to send out links, I was able to invite people in. So the students still didn't know who the jury was. And I made them do video. So they had to still dress appropriately. They had to come over video, and they still had to testify. And I had someone come in as an attorney. So we asked them questions back and forth. It worked out way better than I was expecting. I was very pleased with how the mock trial portion. Yeah,
That's
I was
great.
really happy with it.
I would love to see that also. I know you probably can't show that because we don't have the students' permission, but maybe you can ask one of your students. I would love to see that at a later time because that sounds really, really awesome.
So one of the requirements for my course is I make all of my students sign our BC media release. So I have permission from all of my students to release any of my footage, and I do have some of the mock trials, so I can definitely share those.
That's excellent. Do you have one you can share now easily?
Yeah, let me see. So here's one of the examples of the mock trials that we did this past semester. So as I stated, I had someone come in that was an attorney and was asking the students questions. So the students had to be on video, they had to be dressed appropriately, and then they had to answer questions based on reports and crime scenes that they had worked throughout the semester. So I'm just going to play a small portion of this just so you can see kind of how the trial worked.
But these witnesses were found during your neighborhood canvas.
They were on scene.
They were on scene. So Morton, Weissman, and Johnson were all witnesses on scene.
Morton was a bystander that was part of the canvas, that was discovered during the canvas.
A bystander that was found during canvas but was there at the time of the incident?
No, the canvas was done after we arrived to the scene and after the detective arrived. Morton was discovered during the neighborhood canvas, but Weissman and Johnson were discovered at arrival to the scene because they were the witnesses.
So as you can see, he references his report. He talks about bystanders, canvases, all of those are terms that they actually learned throughout the semester. You saw the attorney asking him questions, and she was kind of putting him on the spot because she was the defense. So she's trying to challenge his report. And the whole idea with the trials is for the students to realize that what they write down, they are required to answer for later. And so some of them realized that if they made mistakes in their reports, they had to answer for it in court. And so she was very good at bringing up some of those things where you saw she was talking about witness versus bystander, and he had to know those definitions and what did he mean and be able to explain it. And so that worked out really well. As you see, they were able to go back and forth, and then all of the jury members as well as the other classmates could view and observe that relationship, that discussion between those two, and then give them scores on, did he answer the questions appropriately? Did he know the terms? Was he speaking to the camera and all of those things? So I think the trials worked out really well.
That's really, really awesome. And I recognize the attorney.
Yeah.
So you are doing such fabulous, fabulous things. And it's really great to see the way that you've been able to overcome some of the challenges that you anticipated and found these just really creative ways to use video and the remote learning and Blackboard Collaborate environment to really continue the flow of your classes. And as you said, even add that extra layer for the future when you need other solutions for problems that come up. Is there any advice that you would give to your colleagues as they continue to adjust to delivering content in a remote learning modality?
Yes. So a couple of things. One, make sure you are flexible. What you think you're going to be able to do, you may or may not be able to do. So be able and willing to adjust what your game plan is, because it's probably going to change. The other thing that I would stress is ask for help, especially what I found to be by far the most helpful thing for me when transitioning into remote was the Teams site that you all set up. That Teams site that had input from all different areas that were helping us with transitioning, as well as other faculty members, was beyond helpful. That is really what saved me with this whole transition. And once I started to kind of figure things out, I was able to even jump in and help people as well, which kind of made me feel good because I was like, hey, I know something. So
That's great. It makes me really happy to hear that you took advantage of that resource.
And what's interesting is that the information, I don't know why, didn't get out to everybody. And so I started pushing it out as in our department. I started letting all of our faculty know that, hey, if you're having issues, go to this site and just ask them questions, because you guys were great as far as responding and like helping us quickly. I was able to, like, I had an issue, I was able to get the answer right away. And that was so helpful. So anybody that has not done this yet and is nervous about it or is going into it or trying to figure out how to transition, I would just stress, make sure you go to that team site and ask those questions. And everybody that has been doing this is on there and they're giving feedback and they're helping. And even when people that are in charge of it or moderating it, if they don't get back right away, other faculty members are jumping in. And so you're getting resources. I've met people through that team site now that I never probably would have met, because we work on totally different areas. So on there now, I'm chatting with people and they're helping me out. And we're doing our own Zooms and video conferences and helping each other work through some of this stuff. So I would definitely encourage other people to go to that site. And then, like I said, ask for help and be flexible with what you're expecting to come out of this.
Wow, that's really, that's so amazing, because Belinda and I, of course, our teams are working on that site, and it's so great to hear how well you've utilized it. And then I love hearing that you and the other faculty are actually doing your own sessions. We didn't even know that you were doing that, so that's great.
Laura's been helping a lot, actually. It's been vital. So and through your experiences, because you're actively teaching, your suggestions to colleagues is, I think, invaluable, and that's excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been really trying to, because I know it's difficult on your end as well. So trying to just help buffer some of those people that need some assistance if I can. Because especially with the breakout groups, as you've seen, I do them literally in every class I teach. And so I've been learning what works, what doesn't work, how you can share, how you can't share, what they can see, what they can't see. And I actually ask my students when they're in the groups, I'm like, hey, can you see this? Can you hear this? And I've been playing with it. So I've been trying to really help out with that as well.
Yeah, in fact, you gave me a really good idea with sharing the link for the video, because I had tried to troubleshoot that as well. Like, how can the breakout groups, once you leave that main room, how can they all see what you want to share with the group? And so that's a really good option, is to just give them the link before you send them on the breakout groups. And then once they're in the breakout groups, have them watch that with their team. I love that suggestion.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, it works really good, because then in the groups, they can watch it on their own time, because, all the groups don't work at the same pace. So then the group can say, all right, is everybody done watching the video? And then they talk about it. And so that worked out really well. That was one of those things that I learned, all right, I need to give each group the link, or they all need to have it, so that way they can watch it on their own time frame, because they can't see it from the main room.
Yeah, and then they could even pause it. They can control it themselves. I love that suggestion. I am definitely going to be using that one.
Nice.
Good.
Thank you. And I think it just reinforces how we're all in this together. And, the best way to learn and to improve is just to help each other and to try new things. And can't thank you enough for just being so willing to help your peers and your colleagues. Because this hasn't been easy for any of us, for sure.
Yeah, I know. Of course.
And I think the true educators really stand out, regardless of whether you're teaching students or colleagues or whatnot. It's really great to see everyone, really step up their game and help each other out through this.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Professor Pazzarina, I would like to thank you personally for agreeing to participate in our webinar series.
Yes, thank you so much. I was fortunate enough to have worked with you in New Faculty Institute last year when you were first, coming to the college.
Right.
I
Yeah.
cannot believe how much you've done in less than 2 years here at the
Right.
college. It's so amazing to see how you've embraced teaching and to see all of the innovative ways that you're engaging your students, not just in the remote environment, but what you're doing in the live session. I am just dying to come to one of your classes when I'm able to do that. Your passion and for what you do, your desire to share that passion with your students, it's so evident. We're so fortunate to have you at the college and that you chose us and chose to be part of our BC family. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
This concludes our 4th episode of our webinar series, A Bird's Eye View. Please tune in as we highlight more of your outstanding BC colleagues this summer. Thank you for joining us.